Welcome to another edition of the B&FT Chat with me, Norvan Acquah-Hayford. Today we are speaking to the German Ambassador in relation to their German Unity Day, which is coming up. And his name is Christoph Retzlaff, who will be telling us their cooperation and bilateral relations with Ghana and how they intend to improve upon that. And what are some of the challenges they see in this country and how they believe that can be dealt with, and what are the ways that they think that the government should use to resolve some of these issues that we have in this country. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador, for joining us on the B&FT Chat. It is the first time that we are interviewing you. We are glad to be here this morning, but that comes at a time when we have the German Unity Day coming up. What briefly can you say about your country with respect to the Unity Day that you'll be celebrating soon?
Yeah, thank you very much for being here. It's a pleasure to have you here. German Unity Day is always a very special day for Germans because German Unity Day is a special occasion that had, of course, a lot of repercussions throughout Europe and throughout the world. Basically, what happened in 1989 was that the people in East Germany, in a peaceful revolution, brought down the wall, the iron wall between East Germany and West Germany, and in the follow-up to this, Europe became reunited again. The division after the Second World War was overcome, and I would say it was one of these defining moments in history where people take their destiny in their own hands and really made history. And this is a very inspiring example for me, especially today in a world when you see so much nationalism and populism and also narrow-mindedness. There are challenges in history, and if you're peaceful, you can overcome many of these challenges.
And I mean, you're celebrating in Ghana, whilst back home they will also be celebrating. I'm sure it's simultaneous, the same day, that kind of thing. What do you hope to kind of achieve, or what is the message to the people of Ghana and Germans in particular who are living in this country this year? And if you can share the theme also with us.
Yes, I would say the basic message of this day of German unity is, first of all, we Germans, we are grateful to Europe and the world for having enabled us to overcome the German, the Iron Wall in Germany, because alone we wouldn't have been able to do that. I mean, it was the people of East Germany who started this peaceful revolution in Germany, but of course we needed the trust and the consent of our international partners, especially the US, the Russians, the UK and France, to overcome the division, to overcome the bad legacies of the Second World War. So the overwhelming feeling is that of gratefulness to our European partners, to our global partners, to the world. And the basic message to the people in Ghana is that there are, as I said, these moments of optimism where people really take their destiny in their own hands and make history. So live the spirit of optimism, believe in the fact that you can change things for the better, and that is very important.
How many years are we looking at since the wall that separated the two countries, the two rising countries, let me say, brought together, let me put it this way, both East and Western Germany?
Yeah, we are celebrating the 27th years of German reunification. The date of reunification is when the Unity Treaty between East and Western Germany was signed on the 3rd of October in 1990. But actually the wall came down on 9th November 89 in a very unprecedented and unimaginable way. I remember those days in Germany, nobody 2 months earlier, in August or September, would have been able to know that the wall would come down. That was something that happened within a day, and this is really how history was made in these days.
Tell me your experience. I'm sure by the time you were in Germany.
Yes, I was in Germany, and I remember very well when I was sitting and watching TV, and there was this very famous interview with one of the members of the then GDR, the East Germany Politburo, as we called it, and in this live press conference, he was asked, or he was handed out a piece of paper, and he read it in front of the camera saying, there will be no more requirements for crossing the border from East Berlin to West Berlin. And the journalists didn't believe their ears, and asked him, when will that take effect? And he didn't know, and he just immediately. And what was happened is that 30 minutes later, people came to the border stations in Berlin, in East Berlin, and asked the border soldiers that can be crossed into West Berlin. And they were reluctant, but the people built up, and then they opened the borders. And so the whole reunification process started.
I see. Now let's come to your heading the mission here in Ghana. You've been here, as you've already told me, a year and some months. What would you say about the country Ghana?
It's a great country. I really love Ghana. I really love Ghanaians. It's a country with a lot of young people, with a lot of potential, a lot of creativity, but also, of course, with considerable challenges. The chances are a lot. Ghana has been traditionally a frontrunner in Africa when it comes to democracy, when it comes to economic reforms, and I'm optimistic that Ghana will be able to live up to the expectations and once more become a frontrunner in economic modernization in Africa, and that's what we are working for in our close and friendly German-Ghanaian cooperation.
Yeah, you talk of the German-Ghanaian cooperation. I mean, which other areas are you looking at, especially in this year when we've had a new government, take over the reins of trying to move the country forward in terms of its governance? I mean, which areas are you trying to cooperate with us to ensure that you can help us achieve that economic cooperation or come at par with you?
Yeah, we're doing basically, the pillar of our cooperation is development cooperation. And there we have three areas that are very important. First of all, we are working together for sustainable economic development. That's important because Ghana needs more industry and more jobs, especially for the younger generation. We are also working together in the sector of good governance, because good governance, especially in the financial administration, is something that is a prerequisite for economic modernization. And thirdly, the third pillar we are working on is agriculture, because agriculture traditionally is a very important sector in Ghana, and agriculture is still the sector of the economy where most jobs are created. And we believe that there is a lot of potential in agriculture in Ghana, so we have to combine our forces, to really live up to the challenges and to realize the potential in agriculture.
Let me pick on one of the pillars that you talk about, good governance. I mean, we seem to have some challenges, just as you said, when it comes to good governance in this country. How do you think we should go about it to be able to deal with these challenges? We've seen a lot of government institutions and how it's been run down over the years, vis-a-vis even when financially, how they've bought, various boards of these companies have handled themselves. What do you think must be done so we can sanitize the system?
I would say when we talk about governance, good governance in Ghana, first of all, I would say Ghana really can be proud of its democratic credentials. Ghana was the first country in sub-Saharan Africa to become independent in 1957, and Ghana has now a long tradition since 1992 of democratic transition. We have seen the last democratic peaceful transition after the elections in December that went very smoothly. So Ghana, in our view, really is a model for democracy and stability in the region of West Africa. Having said that, of course, modernization requires good governance. Good governance requires an environment that is free of corruption. Corruption, I would say, is still an issue in Ghana, something that has to be tackled urgently. There is too much of this problem. Ghana is not a single case here. We have this problem in many countries in the world, not only in Africa, also in the Western world. Corruption is a problem. We think that the initiatives of the new government, of the president, are going into the right direction. We are waiting for the office of the special prosecutor to fight corruption to be implemented. I understand that the draft bill is in Parliament right now. We would like to see it implemented as soon as possible. But of course, it also requires a change of mind on all levels of society, because you are just losing too much money and too much dynamism in these corruption things. So this is really to be improved. Another sector that is very important is financial management. You have to mobilize domestic revenue. You have to just get more money, because there's a serious, of course, macroeconomic challenge in this country. Thirdly, of course, it's a question of capacity. That brings me to the sector of education. Of course, you need, of course, well-educated people. You need a world-class education system to be fit for the future. And the government has, of course, realized that with 3 SHS just introduced. I think that's a very important step in the right direction.
I see. Now, let's look at how the two countries can leverage on your cooperation to achieve its intended goals that you have. Let's look at bilateral relations. I mean, which areas are you dealing when it comes to bilateral relations this time around?
Yeah, we are in a very good situation here in German-Ghanaian cooperation, because we not only have the embassy here, we have about 14 or 15 different German organizations here. We have in the cultural sphere, we have the Goethe Institute, our cultural institute. We have the DAAD, dealing with student and university cooperation. By the way, we have each year about 400 Ghanaian students coming to Germany to study, something that we are very proud of. We have the GIZ, this is our development cooperation agency. We have 2 development banks, KfW and DEG. We have political foundations, we have advisors from the German army here. So we have a lot of, we have the Deutsche Welle, training journalists here, so we have a lot here. And that is bringing us in a position where we can really work in all sectors of society here. And I would say what really has improved in the last 12 months is the political dialogue on the highest level. You will remember that His Excellency President Akufo-Addo has been to Berlin in June for the launch of the G20 Africa Partnership. He had a meeting with Chancellor Merkel. There was also a dinner with our federal president, Steinmeier. And very soon, probably in December, we are expecting a very high-level guest from Germany, also here in Ghana. So you see, I would say, on political dialogue, we have reached a new level of cooperation, and I'm proud of it.
Well, what's been the contribution of your companies to the Ghanaian economy from where you sit? I'm sure as an ambassador, you're also monitoring how well your companies, over 15 companies of them, are doing in this economy.
Yeah, very good question. We are working hard at this embassy together with our delegation of German industry and commerce and the German companies here to improve our economic relationship here with Ghana. We see some encouraging signs. The trade volume last year has gone up by almost 20% in 2016. We see more German companies interested in doing business in Ghana, also in investing in Ghana, but we are not yet at the point where we could be. Because, as you know, Germany is the strongest economy in Europe, and we would like to attract more German companies to come here, not only do trade, but also to invest here and create jobs for young Ghanaians. When the Ghanaian president was in Berlin in June, he held a roundtable with heads of German major industrial companies, and that was a very successful meeting, and we want to follow up on this.
I see. From where you sit, we've had aid, trade. Our current government looks at trade more than receiving aid. Where do you think we should be focused on as a country to build a prosperous nation that we are looking at?
I think for the time being, or for the years to come, you should concentrate on both. I'm convinced that we need both for the moment in our cooperation. We need traditional development aid, especially in the fields of agriculture, vocational training, things like that. But it will be also important, and even more important in the future, to move, as the President has said, from aid to trade, because traditional development aid will never do the job. When you look what kind of money you need for infrastructure investment in Ghana and in Africa in the 2 decades to come, that will never be able to be covered by development aid alone. So you need more private investment. If you look at the world right now, there are trillions of US dollars around the world waiting to be invested. Only 4% of this investment money is going to Africa right now. Despite the fact that Africa has the youngest population in the world and probably will have about 4 or 5 billion people at the end of the century. So there's a huge potential in Africa, huge potential. And in order to realize this potential, to generate economic development, we need private capital, private investment in Ghana, in Africa, and that's exactly the basic idea of our G20 Africa partnership that we have launched as the German G20 presidency.
Okay, so between Ghana and Germany, you are the ambassador. Which other areas? Because you say, let's take our time, move from aid to trade. But I want to get into the trade area. Which areas are you considering to ensure that you tighten the knots and increase trade volumes between the two countries?
I think German industry has a lot to offer. I think especially in the field of technology, especially in the field of renewable energy. The challenges in the energy sector require a new energy mix here, and we are very glad that the President has made it very clear that all new power purchase agreement in this country will be done in renewable energy. There's a very ambitious program starting from the side of the Ghanaian government to make all ministries and official buildings in Ghana green, to rely them on renewable energy. We have a lot of expertise in Germany in this sector, and we are working hard on this. Let me, in this context, also mention that we have just concluded a bilateral German-Ghanaian reform partnership, a reform partnership that will bring up to 100 million euros each year to Ghana. We start in this year. We are just in the process of negotiating the details of the partnership. And this new German-Ghanaian partnership is meant to support the G20 compact with Ghana, with Africa.
Let me then bring in this question, which some people say, lot of partnerships, lot of contracts being signed, but really we don't tend to benefit as a nation greatly from these funds that come into the country. I mean, from where you sit, when you sign these partnerships, how do you ensure that the locals, that's the government officials, use every penny on the projects that you designate these funds for?
Yeah. Let me give a good example. The new reform partnership is one pillar of this new reform partnership is vocational training. So what we are doing with the money is we will train and educate young Ghanaians to be in a better position to find jobs in this country. Of course, we know there's not enough to train people for the job. You have also to create the jobs for the educated people to come there. And that's why we want to bring in our industry here. Companies like Siemens are ready to go on here in the energy sector, in the renewable energy sector, and they would be the ones who could provide for these jobs for educated young Ghanaians.
The government says that we have one district, one factory. That is industrial revolution. We want to start something which will create those jobs that you and I agree do not exist. I mean, is the German government interested in getting more of its companies to also look at the prospects of some of these areas and come in and set up here, instead of we always having to send in raw materials to your side and then the products being dumped on us?
Exactly. That's exactly the philosophy that's right. That's the philosophy of the new government, of the president, and we are fully supporting it.
You fully support it? Any funding, anything that you intend to do?
Yeah, of course. As I said, we want to bring more German companies here into Ghana to invest and to make sure that not only raw materials are exported, but that the value creation takes place in Ghana here. That's what we're all working for.
Okay, now let's look at what you think in the next 5 years would be the German footprint in Ghana like.
I think we would be very happy to see when the G20 partnership with Ghana will take off, when we will be really able together to bring more private investment to Ghana, and when we see more Western, more German companies here investing in Ghana, creating jobs for the young generation. That would be the kind of development I would be happy to see.
Mr. Ambassador, your day is coming up. You need to speak to your fellow countrymen who are in Ghana and the Ghanaian people. What do you have to say to those who are watching this particular interview now?
I would say be optimistic about Ghana. Ghana has a lot of potential. It's a potentially rich country. It has a very young population here. International partners, Germany, Europe, the world are here to help you to develop, to fully develop and to prosper in the future. And as I said, I'm really optimistic about it. Just take destiny in the hand, work hard, and you will see it will pay out.
And what would you say to the investors who are still sitting in your country and thinking, should we go to Ghana? Should we consider another country?
Yeah, come here to Ghana, look what's going on here. There are already a lot of international companies here in Ghana. We are working hard to convince you that this is the right place in Africa to invest.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador.
You're welcome.
I'm
Thank
so
you very much.
grateful for your time.
Thank you.
All right. That's how we end today's edition of the B&FT Chat with me, Norvan Acquah-Hayford. This particular production is brought to you by BFTonline.com. You can always watch other videos or other productions that we have on our YouTube page, that is Business and Financial Times, or the B&FT YouTube page, and also on our Facebook page as well. Spend time, watch some of these videos, understand what is happening in our country. But remember, we'll be speaking to Christoph Retzlaff, who is the German ambassador to Ghana. Join us again next time. We'll bring you another insightful interview. My name is Norvan Acquah-Hayford. Goodbye.